This segment started with "We have a problem." The intent was to hopefully demonstrate that an identified problem, which was unsightly growth that needed to be taken care of, was simply a consequence of a whole set of relationships or interactions that evolved over time. So that if we are to become better problem solvers, it's appropriate to realize that it's almost impossible to do just one thing. There are a set of relationships that are set off by the actions that we take, and we should, in fact, have a sense of those before we take action. And either we think about the relationships beforehand, or we become the victims of the relationships after the fact because they're there. If we don't think about them, they don't go away. We just aren't aware of them, and we have to deal with them later. The second component was creating the future, which tried to go into a bit more detail in terms of the way, from a general perspective, how things unfold over time in terms of our ongoing attempts to change things, even though, we comment and discuss often about the fact that we're adverse to change, and we spend the majority of our time trying to figure out how to change things. Sort of speaks to our basic schizophrenic nature, I think. So that desire to change things encourages understanding, which leads to a strategy, and the strategy is intended to improve the situation. Though because of what we typically don't understand, we don't understand the complex nature of what we're dealing with, and we're not really cognizant of the time and space separation between our actions and the implications of them. We develop strategies that typically produce unintended consequences, which make the situation that we were trying to improve worse, and or actually create new problems in the process that we or someone else has to deal with. And which is why I continue to comment about us being the poster children for Pogo's "We have met the enemy, and he is us." So the point is to understand what it is that's relevant, because the complex and complicated nature of reality is so complex that we can't pay attention to all of it. We need to figure out how to pay attention to just that portion of reality that's relevant to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So the next segment was to sort of provide a sense that while there is an extensive array of reality that's out there, and it's a myriad of interconnections, there is some portion of that we have an influence over. And there is a larger portion of it that we typically have a concern about. And if we focus our energies on this area of concern that we don't have any influence over, we're essentially wasting our time because we can't accomplish anything. And experience has shown that if we focus our energies on improving things within our area of influence, it tends to expand over time. And oftentimes there are situations that you want to address. Often, well, most of the time, I think, there are situations that you want to address that you simply do not have the influence necessary alone to do the necessary changes. So you need to collaborate with other individuals, groups, or organizations so that collectively you have an area of influence which addresses all of the relevant elements and relationships that are essential to make the change that you're interested in. And then the final section, which, because I talked so much about relevance, sort of an insight into how do I how you initially go about identifying where to look for relevance, what it is that you need to understand, so that while you begin with a situation, because we perceive most things as events, but we don't want to react to the events. We actually want to respond to patterns of behavior, so that we need to understand them, and that the patterns of behavior actually arose from a set of interactions, so that we would want to alter that set of interactions to produce a different set of patterns, which caused the situation to be different, yet that set of interactions was actually created, contrived, composed by some set of stakeholders who typically have very different perspectives about what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And because they have different perspectives, the set of interacting components that are typically created as organizations end up being less than effective, so that typically they end up creating situations that need to be dealt with because they're improperly designed to begin with. So this is sort of the context for the extent of understanding that is appropriate if one wants to really do effective problem solving. And in the following sections, we will talk about the situation, the patterns of behavior, interacting components, and stakeholder perspectives, and the development of strategy in detail, sufficient detail so that one can actually go through the steps to become a more effective problem solver. So I'll see you in the next segment.